The trade-ready Spazzer 9200 spacing bar is engineered to handle deflection at the head track of interior light metal stud walls and to deal with the bow that occurs in the middle of tall interior studs. The Spazzer 9200 is a 20-gauge galvanized steel bar that is 50 inches long and pre-notched to rigidly hold studs on 12, 16, or 24-inch centers and fits all stud widths except 1 5/8. Before Spazzer, deflection at the head track was accomplished in several ways, including slotted head tracks or double head tracks, proprietary profile head tracks, the use of a metal strap across the face of the studs, or by fastening studs to the top track and removing the screws later. The 9200 uses shear to bridge studs into a rigid, accurately laid out gridwork that has excellent resistance to stud rotation and displacement. The 50-inch Spazzer bar is simply passed through the stud punch-outs, rotated 90 degrees, and the pre-notched slots are seated down over the web of the stud, holding them in place without the use of the head track. The Spazzer bar is fed through the knockouts with the slotted side of the pre-notched slots entering first. The 9200 accepts 25, 22, 20, and 18-gauge studs. The trade-ready Spazzer 9200 spacing bar offers contractors up to 40% savings in labor and material costs by eliminating the cost of custom-made head tracks and the time required to fasten and remove screws or lay out stud spacing at the deck. Hanging drywall is also faster and easier with the Spazzer bar because it eliminates the bow in tall studs. But the most important feature of the Spazzer 9200 spacing bar is the pre-notched slots and the gripping power of the tabs. It is these slots that facilitate the rapid erection of studs into a rigid gridwork, unattached to the head track. The trade-ready Spazzer 5400 spacer and bridging bar is recommended for steel stud walls and partitions that require bridging, such as exterior curtain wall framing, load-bearing walls, and high interior partitions constructed of heavy-gauge steel. The Spazzer 5400 is a 16-gauge galvanized bridging bar that is 50 inches long and pre-notched to rigidly hold studs on 12, 16, or 24-inch centers. Its universal design works with 3.5 through 6-inch studs. Before the trade-ready Spazzer, most bridging in steel studs was accomplished with mechanical attachments, either screws and clips or welding. The Spazzer 5400 uses shear to bridge steel studs into a rigid, accurately laid out gridwork that has excellent resistance to stud rotation and displacement. Like the trade-ready Spazzer 9200 spacing bar, the 5400 is simply passed through the stud punch-outs, rotated 90 degrees, and then the pre-notched slots are seated down over the web of the stud. With the Spazzer 5400 spacer and bridging bar, framing can be installed up to 30% faster than with cold-rolled channel that uses bridging clips, or cold-rolled channel that requires welding. Savings are also realized through reductions in the measuring time associated with positioning of cold-rolled channel and the time required to place and screw clips. Reductions in the handling of buckets of clips and screws and the elimination of welding equipment and skilled welders is also factored into the overall savings. Let's compare the trade-ready Spazzer bar with traditional framing methods. With the Spazzer bar, studs can start anywhere, at a corner, at a jam stud, or in the middle of a long wall after one stud is fastened in place. No layout is needed because the studs are positioned by the trade-ready Spazzer bar. The trade-ready Spazzer 9200 spacing bar and 5400 bridging bar can save up to 40% in labor and materials costs over traditional framing methods.